All right, everybody, welcome to Cannonball Chronicles. We're just a few minutes from going live tonight. 7 minutes on the clock, and we're going live with a great show. Glad to see you guys here. We're letting social media pile up a little bit. Good to see you guys coming in. Dennis Mason, Bruno Capola. Good to see you guys. Stick around. We're going to have a great show tonight. Cannonball Chronicles. Get ready. 7 minutes. Janesville, Wisconsin in the house tonight. What did you tell me? Bangladesh?
Yes.
Bangladesh. Incredible. Dave, good to see you here, buddy. Thomas Merritt Jr. Great that this crowd is filling up. Todd Bass, Illinois, here to watch. Good to see you here, brother. Just 2 minutes left. We got 2 minutes on the clock, and we're going live with this week's installment of the Cannonball Chronicles. Don't go anywhere. Mike Draco, I can't leave you out, buddy. Cincinnati, Ohio, represent. Number 21, Mr. Tom Banks. Good to see you here, brother. Nancy Weems telling everybody to share. Make sure you hit the share and like button. Help us spread this program across the land. Shelly, good to see you here. Bangladesh, that's so badass. So cool. Okay, guys, looks like it's about time with just about a minute and a half left on the clock. We're going to pull the train out of the station, get it up on the rails, start this thing rolling down the tracks for another episode of Cannonball Chronicles. Here we go.
Hey there, Cannonball Nation. It's Jason Sims, and I'm coming to you live this Wednesday night, July 8th, 2020. I'm joined here this week with my co-host, Robbie, with Retrocycle. Robbie, what's happening, buddy?
Hey, how you doing, Jason?
I'm doing. It's just been a crazy, crazy day in Cannonball world. Unfortunately, I'm sure most of you people that are watching on social media right now have heard the rumors that, yes, Cannonball 2020 is being postponed until 2021. We just couldn't get through what was happening out there. And, unfortunately, the safe and real thing to do was just postpone it till next year.
You held out for a long time. Tell people what the reports were from John Clausen running the course, because people think you're just pulling the plug, and that's far from the case. This is real drama. This is not made up television bullshit. This is the real deal. So tell them what happened with John Clausen.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we started on a course run, our final course run about 7-8 days ago, maybe a little bit more than that now as time's flying. And, everywhere that we're going, we're seeing a devastation of what this COVID is doing to small towns and businesses. Even if there isn't that many cases in that area, the communities are still feeling it. We're going to these towns and checking with the hotels. Well, some of the hotels are closed down because of cases that they've had there with an employee getting it, or one of the customers staying there getting it, and laws are changing across the country as people know, with mandatory masks, mandatory quarantines, and the local governments are putting big fines and all that kind of stuff on that. And it just wasn't the right thing, and in the integrity of the event, to have to put the entrance through this.
You mentioned something about the hotels telling you that they may only give you like 24 hours notice before they can refuse you to come in.
And in some cases it could be no notice. We could be on the road halfway through that day, and they end up getting a case there, and where do we put 400 people? Right. And that was one of the biggest determining factors of this whole thing. I understand that we can stay safe on our motorcycles, and we're distance out from everybody, but at the end of the night, we all have to go somewhere and sleep. And unfortunately, we take all the hotels in all these cities, so it's not like if this hotel closes that we can go to another one and try there. I mean, logistically, it's impossible.
I saw your post on the motorcycle Cannonball page, and the outcrying of support in your defense is just incredible. When we talk about the family, the motorcycle Cannonball family, it's just, there was, as with any social media thing, there's one person who has to speak up and say something out of character. And it just seemed like everybody came to your defense. So we just want you to know, from the family, if I can speak for the family, we're
Absolutely.
all behind you 100%.
No, and I appreciate that. And the outpouring of love and the comments, the text messages, the calls, the emails, the smoke signals, the writings on the wall. Everybody actually took a big sigh of relief. Riders and everything that said, hey, I don't have to subject myself to this now. And a lot of them said, hey, if you jumped, I was going to jump. But half of them said, if you jumped, I was staying here. So
I think the guys who are riding the singles,
they're
big
happy.
Big sigh of relief.
They get an extra year to
prep
get into
bikes.
those things and get them all prepared. Parts. But
it was getting down to crunch time on a lot of that stuff. So
right. So I was joking around with a lot of people and trying to make light of a lot of stuff. And it's, and with this, telling everybody, next year in 2021, all these riders, since they have an extra year to be prepared, that we should have 100 perfect scores, right?
One would think, right?
I would think
plenty of prep time. I've gotten a few calls here. Hey man, I had my bike ready to go and I blew it up. And so those of you who blew up your bike, you got a reprieve from the warden. So,
but check this out. I'm putting the challenge on that you guys better make every single mile.
There you go. That's the way to go.
But I'm also putting a bet out there that Doug Feinsod is still going to be working on his bike in the parking lot.
You mean last minute, Doug? I don't think so. For those of you who are just tuning in, maybe we'll give you a little bit. Jason, describe the Cannonball a little bit. Just a few short words about what the Cannonball is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, motorcycle Cannonball. It's a true challenge of endurance. Motorcycle versus machine. Best 2-lane roads of America. We start in Sault Ste. Marie, which was supposed to be here in just a few weeks, and we were going to make our way to South by Dry Island. Going on that and kind of touching on that a little bit is, I've had a chance to talk to almost every single hosted stop, every hotel, everything that we had planned out for this year that was set in stone. Hey, they're back on board, so I give them, a lot of support with those guys that, hey, thank you for, believing in us and coming back with us. And, we know, and I've made a promise to them and they've made a promise to me that, 2021 is going to be bigger and better than anything we've ever seen,
Yeah. So 3,000 plus miles on 1929 and earlier motorcycles.
Correct.
So there was one other thing I was going to ask you, and I forgot. So,
imagine that. You're getting old there, Robbie. Your birthday was like yesterday. You got that senile disease already now, right?
Yeah. And your name is? Where do I hate you from? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
All right. So, but other than bad news, I mean, people are super excited out there. People are, still business normal, working on their stuff, getting prepared. We're just taking a little bit of a time out right now.
Yeah. Well, there's this, I don't want to call it a silver lining, but there is some good news, and that gives us more of an opportunity here at Motorcycle Cannonball Chronicles to bring you more of the riders, more of the stories, more of the prep, all that stuff in this next upcoming year to get you to know these riders personally, what they're all about, some of their backgrounds, and some of the challenges they're going to be facing. So I think this can be interesting to stay tuned to this program and follow along what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe one of these days we could even talk Leanne into coming on with us.
I've been trying, bring some good looks to the show at least,
Oh my God, right? I mean, really.
And actually some intelligent conversation.
Yeah.
Because we just blah, 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 blah.
Leanne does so much behind the scenes, and I'm sure she's been very stressed over everything, as have you, with everything coming up. But I want to give a shout out to Leanne for all she's done, for the Cannonball, for the chase, all that. So let's talk about the chase maybe. So next year was supposed to be the chase, right? Mm-hmm. So what's your game plan on that? Because it was at the same time.
I've got a couple things up my sleeve. Of course, the chase was going to be in September. We'll probably look at changing the chase to maybe June, July-ish. I pretty much have all the next chase done. We were just waiting for the Cannonball so I can make, all the official announcements and announce the routes and dates and all that kind of stuff. I got a little bit of homework to do now. So
you got 2 events. Let the stress begin again. And you got to get through Sturgis. So.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Builders like you and, John at Sagebrush and Mark at Fourth Coast, they're puckering right now thinking, oh, dang, Sims, he's going to pull 2 events in 1 year. And, they're going to be busier than ever.
If anybody can do it, you can. Leanne can. It'll be tough, but you guys can pull it off. And you always put on a great event, and you always take care of your participants. So
right. We'll see what we can do.
Right.
So no promises on anything right now. Just, see what we can do.
Right. So I guess with no further ado, let's go to the picture of the week. And a picture is worth 1,000 words with Michael Lichter.
Hey, Mr. Lichter, what's happening?
You have to unmute your microphone, Michael.
You're right, I do. Right in front of me. Sorry, guys.
I just bought the same microphone, so now I know what you're going through.
All right, good to see you guys.
We're trying to bring the quality up on this show, and we're all, buying new equipment and
I know.
Dealing with the hassles.
Anyway, lots of changes in the last week, but we're moving forward again.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of moving forward, we got Dean Bordigioni on tonight, and I decided that tonight's picture will be Dean. Our second guest is Ryan, and we already showed his as a 1,000-word picture, so I thought we'd pick out a shot of Dean tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah, so the shot here that we have, if you could bring it up, is...
Do me a favor, guys. Give me 2 seconds. For some reason, I just lost my mouse, so go ahead and talk about the shot, and I'll be right back with you.
Well, actually, I just wanted to give a shout-out to Tom Banks. I'm wearing his shirt tonight. So I have a Banks Brothers motorcycle shirt on, and I want to return the favor. Those guys have worn my shirt a zillion times. So
there you go. It's a big shout out. It's an all-night shout out.
It's an all-night shout out while we're waiting for that mouse to come back. We need a mouse trap. Who's got a mouse trap?
Cool.
Michael, what have you been up to this week?
I've been a lot of printing, getting ready for the Sturgis exhibition. That's mostly what I'm doing. It's a lot of logistics. We have 38 motorcycles coming in from around the country that have to get coordinated, and it's a lot to do to put it on. So
a lot of people have asked about how you get these amazing shots on the Cannonball ride. Can you explain your position while you're on the road? And
It's pretty basic. I sit backwards. So I've got more than 25,000 miles sitting backwards behind other people. And some I know real well, like Dave Przgocki has ridden me on four or five, I guess, cannonballs with the chase. And the first one was behind Carl Olson on a 53 Panhead, sitting backwards all the way across the country. And the rest were on modern bikes with Dave Przgocki. And so I sit back to back. I have communication so that I could talk to him and tell him to slow up or speed up or move over and whatnot. And that gets me in the right position to get photos. So I, for many years, shot from the saddle facing forward, but found that really I was able to do better when I dedicated this way. I mean, sure, it's super fun to be riding and super fun to be riding and taking pictures, but I get great pleasure out of sitting backwards on the bike too and being part of the whole team. So it's a lot of fun either way.
Do you feel like a kid again, riding in your parents' station wagon in the back seat, looking out the back window?
Looking out the back window. There you go. It's fun. You get to bring, some people are more comfortable, some are less. Some riders don't like getting that close, and others, I have them scraping my shoes and messing with me all the time. But that's how we get the shots.
Excellent.
Yeah, and it's worth it.
Well,
I love it.
Well,
we got the picture up
We
now.
got the picture.
Awesome. So this photo, and I welcome the viewers. Maybe somebody has a suggestion on a caption, because I haven't even thought about it. No, I shouldn't say caption. I have a caption. I don't have a title. Normally, I do title all my work. But this one, I just have caption. It's Dean riding in the 2018 Cannonball, and it was stage 7. We were going from Cedar Rapids to Spirit Lake. And obviously it's early morning because these guys in class 1, they have to get out right at sunrise, and certainly a nice time to be out. What I like about the photo, I think it's a pretty photo. It's classic Iowa cornfields, or I presume it's cut corn, which looks pretty ugly in the middle of the day. But at sunrise, it had a nice glow to it, and the clouds are really pretty. And Dean is so focused, and that's Dean. This is truly who he is. And I think he's that way about everything in life. But on the Cannonball, this is what it took. He won this year. He ran every mile on a 1914 single-cylinder Harley with 7 horsepower that had to carry a 220-pound guy, not counting his leathers. So that's without any on him, 220. So that's a lot to be pushing up the Rockies. So he had to get up early, and he'd come into lunch and just barely stop and be off again and come in just in time. And that's how he stayed focused. But you see it on his face. I think you see his body position. You can see Dean he wanted to win. And that's part of who Dean is too. When he does something that goes all the way, and you see it in his body position. Oftentimes he's really hunkered down. I mean, he is so trying to break the wind, and then you'll see him pop back up trying to crack his back, which let the beast be exposed. And he opens up and does a little stretching and gets back into position. But to me, it shows Dean really well.
He appears to be floating in space there in that picture. I mean, if you look at his tires in the background, he kind of pops, but he also looks like he's floating. And I can't imagine floating on a single-cylinder motorcycle. So
there you go. It's probably romanticizing what he was feeling, but maybe in hindsight, we'll have to ask Dean when he comes back on what he thinks of it. But to me, a lot of these shots, when they are floating like this, it's time, slow exposures, the road's blurred, the spokes are blurred. To me, it's how they feel. You don't see cars, it's you in the road. And in this case, there's a couple of riders in the background, which he's probably oblivious to because he is so in the zone.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask Dean when he does come on, if this brings back memories in terms of not the memory of that day, but really of the feeling of being on the road. I'd be curious about asking him that.
I mean, I could feel some emotions from that day. Probably what he was thinking is like, oh man, another mile of cornfields. I mean, that whole area is like, it's a weird area for sure.
Yeah. It's a lot of times as a photographer, you want to get out sunrise, sunset, but it's tough because you get out on the road and you don't know the backgrounds. You're in a town usually. You go through suburbia sometimes, getting out of towns. There's weather. Oftentimes you don't see the sun. It'll be foggy or something. But so you actually do not get that many sunrise shots and very few sunsets because everybody's in. They're working on their bikes by then.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope the listeners out there are chiming in with some suggested titles for me.
What do we got from social? What do we got from social media?
If there is any, Chris can chime in and tell us. Anyway, so is it time to bring Dean in?
We could do that. Let's bring Dean in and talk about this picture.
There we go. We could start with that. That'll be his introduction.
So with that,
maybe yes, maybe no.
Here's our first rider.
Let's meet the racers.
Oh, that's cool.
That's interesting.
Hey, Dean, are you there? Oh, looks like we lost him.
Not yet. It's still us, guys.
Hang on for 1 second.
He was having some.
We lost him.
Some technical difficulties.
There he is.
So.
We're back.
There he is.
We
Team
got
Vito,
cut off.
welcome.
I'm sure it's our fault. We have terrible Wi-Fi on this old farm because they won't bring up anything new to us. But anyway, we're back, and I've got Big Swede in the house.
Big
Awesome.
Swede, hey, buddy.
That's so funny. I've never seen Big Swede look so small.
Stand up. There he is.
There we go. Headless horseman.
Just got off.
We have to do some introductions, but before we even do that and tell a little bit about who you are and your bio, Dean, did you see the picture that I had up of you?
Is this I saw it. I was on my phone when we got connected again. That one, yeah, that was somewhere in the middle of somewhere. Yeah.
Cedar Rapids.
It looks like a morning
Cedar
shot.
Rapids to Spirit Lake. I'm just wondering if when you look at pictures like this, if it does more than just remind you of the day, if it reminds you of the feeling of traveling or the feelings that you go through in your day, in your Cannonball days.
I have to be frank in that I don't remember many days because they all kind of blend together, especially after 4 Cannonballs, and I really rarely know where I'm at. This looks like a morning shot with the light, it's.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot with specifics.
No,
I'm saying
it's all
more in
good. I don't know
general.
where. The bottom line is I rarely know where I'm at, even when we land in a town, because we're reading the map, and I know I was told that morning that we're going to be somewhere, but we never really pay attention. During the day, it's just all about focusing, keeping the bike running, keeping it healthy, and getting your time. And then at night, the crew takes over. Big Swede and Cristiano and Team Vino takes the bike and gets it ready for the next day. So on a single, there's not a lot of time for any reflection or enjoyment. It's just pain. And I've told these guys riding singles this, it's just every day you're on the bike for 10 hours and all you're trying to do is make your time. And so I see that picture and it looks like every day of the Cannonball to me. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's just what it is to me. But it does look like a photographer. It looks like morning light.
What I mentioned, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Michael.
What I'd mentioned, Dean, is just how the intensity of your expression and pose on the bike just reminds me of who you are all the time, whether it's on the Cannonball or not.
Well, thank you.
Your approach to life.
I got, you're in a tuck like 10 hours a day with a single because you got to keep your aerodynamics, especially I'm 6'3", and I'm way too big for that bike. So anyway, it's just, it's every day. I'm getting cues from the audience here, but I'm going to ignore that. Hey, I missed the whole beginning of the thing because we were cut off. And I'll just say something real briefly. Jason, I'm proud of you and Leanne. You guys made the right decision, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. It's been a tough decision, with how proud that we all are as Cannonballers and all that. And,
dude, it was the right decision. It's
Yeah.
good. Feel proud of yourself. It takes a leader to make a tough decision, and you made a tough decision. And I know it's going to cost you not only financially but emotionally and energy and all this thing more than anyone else, probably more than all of us put together. So I
Right.
admire that you and Leanne made that decision, and I'm proud of you. Just want to tell you
I
that.
appreciate it. I mean, but when you do what you love, it makes it that much easier. So, I mean, we love the event. We love everything about it. We love all the people, and because of that, we're continuing forward and going to make it bigger and better every time.
2021.
Hey,
2021.
Michael, real quick from social media, Mike Draco actually put up a suggestion for your title, Every Day.
Every day. There you go.
Yeah.
Very good. I like that one. Thank you. Maybe we should really give Dean a little let us back up a little bit, because he has such a fascinating history that goes back to owning a Harley Davidson dealership and riding through South America top to bottom on a Harley, and a lot of things that preceded the Cannonball that could just, you could tell us a little about who he is.
Is that
Dean?
back to me?
That's back to you.
A little bit about why don't you tell us
That would be
how you
using,
got your start with motorcycling?
Like I bet a lot of us listening and watching and riding, mine was a mini bike ride. And the first time I rode my brother's mini bike and feel the wind in my face and the freedom of being in control, was one of the more addictive things that I've ever experienced. And then when my same brother got his first dirt bike, I jumped on it and he was on back, and I rode it right into a fence because I didn't know how to stop. And I ruined his bike. And then I took my first ride on a Harley after college, and it totally changed my perception of what I wanted in a motorcycle. And so I have a lot of friends who have come up to me over the years and say, "Oh, I want to get a bike. I want to learn how to ride," and all this. I said, "Listen, I never encourage anyone to ride a motorcycle. It's either in you or it's not. And for me, it's just part of who I am. And I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of all the people I've met and all the experiences I've had. And motorcycling is just part of who I am. Can't take it away.
What about the old bikes? How did that come about?
The Perkins family, no question about it. Those of you who are familiar, Dudley Perkins, Harley Davidson, was the oldest family-run Harley-Davidson dealership until it was sold a few years ago after Tom Perkins passed away. And I met Tommy Perkins when I bought my first Harley, and his brother James and Dudley Jr. And James was into old bikes, and I got to tell you, and he introduced me to old bikes, and I learned how to ride a foot clutch with the Perkins and the whole thing. Tank shift and foot clutch, and there's something, I don't know, when you ride an old bike, you kind of feel like you're riding back in time, and back in time was a little slower than now, and I just really enjoy it.
Let's talk about the name of your team here. Your Team Vino. Can you give us a little background on why it's Team Vino?
Well, thanks for that. Here's some wine. We've already our rosé is called Big Pink because it's my '68 Harley. This is my '23 Team Vino. I own a winery here in Sonoma Valley. My wife and I own a winery. Stand corrected, and we make wine. And Team Vino is just, it came to, the first Cannonball was with my buddy Scott Jacobs. Got in the Cannonball, and he sent me a message, and I go, "Oh hell, I got to do this." And so I jumped in, and Scott and I kind of formed a team, and I made a T-shirt that said Team Vino, and that's how it started. Team Vino now is actually a registered trademark. If you want to lose a lot of money in life, make a wine, put Team Vino on it. we get less than half of our normal price on our wine for anything we put Team Vino on, just because of, it's what it is. But it's all for fun. And I think pretty much everyone in the audience has been around Team Vino's camp drinking wine at one point or another. I've got photographic evidence. So we make good wine and we enjoy life, and that's what we do. So we're Team Vino, and Vino is Italian for wine, obviously, and I'm of Italian heritage, and it just kind of sounded right. So there you have it. We should open it.
So how long have you owned the winery now?
I purchased this 14 years ago, which amazes me because I've never done anything more than 5 years. And I purchased it in my late 40s as a single guy with never married, no kids, a decent amount of money in the bank. And now, 14 years later, wife, kids, and no money in the bank. So that's basically what owning a winery does to you. So here we are.
So that's what you attribute your success to, huh?
Absolutely. We're a family winery.
And you have the 2014 sitting there in the tasting room, which looks great.
It's actually right behind us. I just got it back. I'm going to give Robert this. He knows how to.
I can open a wine.
So I don't know. I'm going to do this. Can you guys see?
Yeah.
I just got my 14 back just a few days ago. No, we're good. We'll get to it later. There it is.
And where did you have it at?
I dropped it off.
You can say it. Go ahead.
No, Steve Hunsinger's built the bike for me the first time, and after every Cannonball, I brought it back to him. And I got to tell you, we have one major problem with this bike, and that we can't seem to fix. And it's whenever you walk by it, it starts itself and it wants to ride down the road. That's the only problem. This is directly from Hunsinger. And if anyone, you guys know this guy, that's a pretty rare quote for him.
Steve's a great guy, man. He's a really great guy and a very talented builder.
Very talented guy. He pulled a lot more horsepower out of this thing than it originally had. We have to rebuild it at the end of every Cannonball. Just to go through it, because so much is invested in doing a Cannonball, even if the bike's, running great. I just have Steve tear down the engine and put it back together. And this last time, we didn't really have to do anything to it. We needed a new clutch because I fried the clutch. My seat was shot. The hardware for the seat, because we have more of a modern seat on it, because I couldn't fit on it with the original seat. But put a new tire and a new belt on it. So it's pretty much the same bike as last time. But we wanted to go through the effort of breaking down the engine and putting it back together just to make sure nothing was going sideways. Right.
Which is smart with any machine that you build for the Cannonball.
Yeah, the Cannonball is a whole different world,
Well, there's so much invested in the Cannonball to start with that, just overlooking something like that just could knock you right out of the enjoyment of riding across country. So it's a smart move.
The enjoyment and the expense, you're spending, a lot of money to get a team and to do the Cannonball. And so every year the first Cannonball, the bike wasn't ready, and that was obvious. And then I learned my lesson, like a lot of people who have done the first Cannonball. You come back kind of with your tail a little between your legs, and you just weren't ready because you didn't. The bike, get that bike, do that every day. Everything has to be done to it, and that's it's a way over my head. I'm not even a good mechanic, let alone a brilliant mechanic. And then fortunately on the road, I have Big Swede and I have Cristiano to take care of the bike. And so Steve built it, and I got a couple good guys here's Team Vino, my brother Tom on the far left. Well, there you go. There's my wife with the bike. Look at that. It's on the picture.
On the picture.
The wife's here. She's gone. Bye, my wife. I have no idea. This is leaving somewhere. This was
Atlantic City.
But there's a good example that you did do a lot of roadside repairs when needed.
Well,
yes, you did.
The only thing I'm good at as a mechanic is getting a bike home. I have a knack for getting a bike home. Doesn't mean I do anything right for the motorcycle, but if I could get it back to the two guys working on it, we're in good shape. But I've always had a knack of getting a bike home. That's the only thing I'll give myself credit for as a mechanic.
It seems like the extra year is not going to make a big difference to you in preparation for the next Cannonball. But I believe, and maybe Jason can chime in here, I believe there's a number of new single-cylinder riders coming in on the next Cannonball. Is that correct, Jason?
Correct. Yeah. This year we've seen a great influx this year of guys that are crazy enough to get on them single cylinders and try to advance across America. And I think a lot of that comes from, hey, I've done it on a different motorcycle. I've made my perfect score there. Now I need a new challenge, to kind of step it up a little bit and see if they can take it to the next level.
How big a field will it be this year for the single cylinders?
I believe we had 15 of them.
Wow. So, Dean, maybe you have some advice for those people. They have an extra year, which is absolutely amazing. Instead of having 8 weeks, now they have 60 weeks to get ready.
Well, first I'm going to ask Jason, when he first heard that 2 years ago when I was going to ride a single belt drive at 6'3", 225 pounds, I know he thought I was crazy because everyone else thought I was crazy. And now I know that I was crazy because it was one of the top 5 dumbest things I've done. It's way hard. I think it was Rocky 2 or Rocky 3. Remember what was the guy, Mr. T? Remember that? Was he in Rocky? Was that Rocky movie? I think it was Rocky.
It's a Rocky movie.
Mr. T.
Yeah, he was Glubber Lang.
No, it's better when they're interviewing. What do you predict for this fight? And he goes, I predict pain. So I'm telling all those single people out there, and you're going to suffer, man. It sucks riding a single.
Let me ask you a question. Did you have much interaction with last week's guest, Chris Tribby, who was on an 11 Excelsior?
Oh yeah, he was next to us. I can't remember his mechanic's name. I know he. I heard. Anyway, we were working with both of them, and the Tibby had an amazing bike, and he had bad luck one day, and I think his intake valve went out. Yeah. There were a couple of guys who would have won besides me, but they had that stroke of bad luck. And so I had a stroke of good luck in that nothing really failed. And part of it was, like Vince Lombardi, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And so we were definitely prepared, and we worked for it, and we have a wonderful motorcycle. But there's some luck involved, and Tibby's a wonderful guy. He knows like encyclopedic knowledge of motorcycles. He's light years ahead of me on what to do and how to build a motorcycle. His mechanic, actually, Cristiano, when he was working for me, I don't know if you know, Cristiano worked for me when I owned my Harley dealership. And that's how I met Cristiano. He was the little kid from Brazil. He came in like at 20 and started doing like setup work. Cristiano went to, and I'm sorry, can't remember his name, but Tibby's mechanic was an instructor at Harley, and Cristiano, who was running our bike, went to one of his classes at HDU. So I thought that was spectacular. That's how it goes around. So
what was your biggest single challenge of this past Cannonball? Did you have any concern at any point that you were going to have a problem and it was going to take you out of the running?
The fear is always getting into a grade. There's Rocky. Cool. Or there's a fight thing up there. I guess it's Rocky. Yeah, Mr. T. The fear, every time you turn a corner and you see a long, steep grade on a single, you get a pit in your stomach and you're ready to throw up because you know what, you might end up pushing the damn bike for a half an hour, an hour. On this last one, I don't think anybody knows this, but our last night in the 218, when we finished the last second to the last day, I finished with very little gas in the tank. And then Cristiano and Robert serviced the bike. And then they filled it up with gas for the next morning, and gas started pouring out of the tank. And what I didn't know during the day was we split the tank, and we had this huge gap, huge seam that ripped on the tank. And so those guys puttied it up with, what were we using?
It's a putty that you bake together. It's called steel stick or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I gave him a 12-hour warranty on it.
Yeah. So any of you who are used to riding these motorcycles, you know that where that tank split is basically where your privates are sitting on the motorcycle. And the entire last day, I had my glove off. Most of the day, I had my glove off my right hand, and I kept feeling the tank to see if there was any gas leaking, because if there was, I was going to bail and just pull over and be done. So our biggest challenge in 18 was we almost didn't finish because the tank fell apart on us.
Wow.
But we did.
Wow. I'd never heard that story.
On it. No one heard it because we didn't want anybody to know. We were a traveling bomb, man.
When you first started telling the story, Big Swede's eyes were rolling behind you. I don't know if you saw that, but he rolled his eyes.
That was a scary moment.
It was that meeting when they called me back to the bike, and we all had a little meeting, and they go, F. And so the next day it had its challenges. I was ready to pull over at any moment, turn the bike off, because I thought, winning isn't worth dying. That's for damn sure. So anyway, we got through it. The Big Swede is a master of putting up stuff, by the way.
He's a master puttier.
Yes. They also give him quite a few rolls of duct tape. That's when you graduate from engineering school in Sweden.
Well, let's bring him over by the camera for a moment. Robert, come on over by the camera.
Yeah.
I'm here.
I'm gonna go away because he's diseased. Okay. I'm joking.
I've been traveling quite a lot recently, so he don't want to sit next to me.
I want to know the challenges of working with Dean.
How long time do we have?
Tell me your favorite moment and your worst moment from the last Cannonball.
Favorite moment is actually when Dean comes in and he's totally exhausted, but he goes through that kind of the finish line, and you see the look on his face. And when he sees his family, it just gives me goosebumps just seeing that. That's the favorite moment.
It's amazing the emotions at the finish line, and Jason's there. Jason and Leanne are there to greet everybody. It was pretty cool.
It's crazy. Yeah, exactly that moment. Exactly that moment.
So your team has such a great spirit. Team Vino was really amazing every night. So I have to ask, how much of that team spirit was? Where did it come from, and how much of that was the wine? How much of that was the wine? Because it seemed like the wine flowed very freely around Team Vino, Camp Vino.
Oh, there it is.
I think that's what we call it. Team Vino's Camp Vino there.
Yeah, yes. Exactly.
And
that's Dean holding court there.
Well, it looks like it, but it's not, because we are a team, and there's no way I would have finished, let alone won, without all these guys. And my brother and my buddy Kurt and Bruce were traveling with the team, and then we had Robert and Cristiano, and we had pretty good magic going on. And this night, I can't remember what night this was. This was late in the deal. It just happened everybody was around. But we've enjoyed sharing. Oh, my kids are coming out. Great. Oh, no. Let them come out. We've enjoyed sharing our wine with the other Cannonballers and the Cannonball staff. And Michael, of course. Michael's one of my buddies now. Consider him a friend, a true friend. And you go through different stages in your life, and you meet people, and they become part of your life forever. And then Cannonball's like that. It's like going to college or something. It's the same level of friendship. Ani, come over here.
Well, there's an old saying, it takes a village, and that's the spirit of the Cannonball, I believe.
Yeah, it is. Ani, come back. You missed her. I want to see. I don't know if you guys remember my daughter, but she's growing up, and I'm in trouble.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Ani.
Well, she was about a baby in the first Cannonball when we were taking pictures.
She was an absolute baby. Yeah.
2 years old.
Yeah, 2 years old. And then Ani is.
And then Coltrane, how old was Coltrane when you got started?
He was a figment of the imagination. And then
He's a Cannonball baby.
he's a Cannonball baby.
Remember, I drove the van. Super pregnant.
Yeah, Ani and I are moving to an island off Sicily in a couple of years. And we'll stay again until I find her a husband. Yeah, there we go. Good luck with that one. So
Cool.
that's us. Anyway.
Well, it's a great seeing your family. I know when we got near the finish, I think it was the day before, I have some photos of you and the family, and you just look so elated to have had them with you and to be celebrating with them. It was really an awesome sight. The energy was wonderful.
That was a good picture.
I think it's true of everyone who does this. Hey, come over here, Coltrane. Say hi. Here's Coltrane. Here's my boy.
Hey, Coltrane.
There he is.
He's got a daddy haircut. I have my COVID haircut, and he has his. I took the clippers to him. Where were we? Family. I think it's true of everyone who does this. You're out of, once you become a grown person and you have a family, you don't leave for 3 weeks to do almost anything. It's hard. It's hard on everyone who does this. And then to see my kids and my wife at the end of the deal, it's really, it's as good as it gets.
That's awesome. That says it all right there.
We have a question that Marge dug up for us that I guess she talked to you about in the pre-interview, and she said there was an intense first 24 hours of Dean's initial Cannonball experience.
That's embarrassing. Yeah, okay. So we go back to the 2012 Cannonball. I heard about the 10. I sold my Harley dealership in 2003 in the 100th anniversary. And then I dropped off. I wasn't paying any attention to motorcycling. I needed a break after that experience. And then all of a sudden I heard about the 2010 Cannonball, and I was actually irritated that I wasn't able to do that because it sounded like so much fun. And then my buddy Scott Jacobs sent me an email when he got into the 2012. Hey, let's look what I'm doing. And so I called Scott. I go, listen, I want to do it with you. Let's be teammates. And I've known Scott since forever, and he's just him and his family, wonderful people. And so he goes, well, it's closed. We already done. I go, well, and he goes, he told me about Lonnie, and he gave me Lonnie's phone number. And so I called. This is in 24 hours. I get the message from Scott. I call Lonnie. I said, listen, I'm Scott's buddy. I want to be in his team, yada, yada. Lonnie, being who he is, gracious guy, lets me in. He goes, okay, we'll make room for you. So he lets me in. And so I call up another friend of mine. You guys might know Glenn Bader. He's been trading in the motorcycle world for a long time, antique motorcycle world. I call up Glenn and I go, listen, I need a bike for the Cannonball. And Glenn finds me a bike. I buy it a sight unseen because I trust the guy. And so we're counting down this first 24 hours. So the last piece of the puzzle is, Abigail and I are already married, but I hadn't bought her an engagement ring. She found one she wanted. It was a vintage ring, and we're building a winery, and I'm like hemorrhaging money. And I said, listen, I can't afford to buy this now, but I promise you, before I get another motorcycle, right? We've all been there. I'll get you, God. Right? And so in the same 24 hours, I call my mother-in-law who's in Santa Barbara where this ring is. And I says, go get that ring right now and make sure you get it in your hands. Don't let anybody take it. Because as soon as they know I want it, they're going to jack it up, which was correct. And so within 24 hours, I found a bike. Well, one, I got accepted by Lonnie. Then I found a bike. that I got my wife's engagement ring. And when I told her, I said, listen, I gave her the ring. And she goes, she looked at me, God's truth. She goes, you bought a bike.
I said you bought another fucking motorcycle. Sorry.
It's live.
Live TV. We love it.
That's my first 24 hours. And that's the 23 Harley that I bought that we did 2 cannonballs with that. And I was lucky enough to win Class 2 in 2014 with that motorcycle.
So you'll have the number 1 plate going in next time. What's that going to be like?
Yeah, I have it right here. I was going to put it on the motorcycle, but it's
with duct tape.
Yeah.
By the way,
I'm not a big motorcycle racer guy. I'm just a guy doing this stuff with friends, and I think there's little to no chance of ever having the number 1 plate again. So I was looking forward to running the number 1 plate and taking a little bit of self-aggrandizement or whatever it is. But I feel we earned it, and we wanted to celebrate it. And then, this Cannonball being postponed actually is going to give us the opportunity to do it. Hopefully everything gets better in the next year.
What was your last number, Dean? Tell everybody what your number was.
My number has been for the last 2 Cannonballs 13, and
Lucky 13.
Lucky 13. It's right there on Old Bike Zen, and 13 has always been. I think you guys have been a lucky number for motorcyclists, not for other people, and I love 13. And when it became available, I jumped on it, and I hope to never give it up. I love 13. All good.
Awesome.
Great.
You'll be taking your victory lap, only it's going to be 3,000-mile victory lap, not just around the block.
Well, the other singles are going to have to beat me. So I will say that I don't care if I win again. I really don't. I mean, sincerely, it's all been good. One experience is enough. The first is always the best, so you can't do better than that. But I will promise, everybody out there on a single that we will try our best. And so if you beat me and you beat Team Vino, you beat us at our best. There's no question about it.
Awesome.
There you go.
Cool. What do you think, guys?
With that, I would like to thank you for joining us, and we'd love to have you back and maybe get some more Swedes thoughts, and we'll get some crew members coming up in some upcoming episodes.
we should invite
Dean,
you.
thanks a lot for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Let's get Cristiano if you ever have us back, we'll try to do tie-in Brazil, because Cristiano has a cool shop in Brazil, and he's the cool cat. So we would
absolutely.
And he's a real good guy. Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
We should have an episode just devoted to some of the foreign participants in the Cannonball. That would be a very cool special.
We forgot to mention Ciro Nisi
from Italy. Yes.
Right. Ciao Ciro, come va? Mi manca moltissimo. Ciao Frederica.
Hey Ciro, Capo di Villa.
Hey Swede, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
It's been a long time. And Dean, thanks again. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you.
We had fun.
Dean, look forward to you coming back through Colorado again. Love to see you here at the house.
Jason, again, Jason. Good job.
Thank you.
I know it was hard. Good job.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Hey, I want to know one last question before we go.
Uh-oh.
How long are you going to let that hair go?
It's a good question. I'm going to let it go until I ride the next Cannonball.
Wow.
That's
I'm
exactly.
gonna look like
That's
shit.
exactly what I'm doing with mine.
Good.
In the wind.
I'm not
That's
cutting
it.
my hair till the
Nice.
next Cannonball.
But dude, you don't have a bunch of gray hair. I look like an old fool with this haircut. I'm just going to suffer. So it's like tank tops. When you get to a certain age, you don't wear a tank top, right? I'm just not one of those guys who has big hair as an old guy, but fuck it, I'm waiting for the next Cannonball. So there you have it.
There you go.
I'm gonna look like hell.
Awesome. Have a glass of wine for us while you're out there.
We might have many. Thank you. Peace out.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
That was great.
So with that, I guess we'll take a word from our sponsors and we'll come back with our next guest who is there with Jason, and I'm really excited to see him. So we'll see you in a few minutes.
Hey, this is Chris from Cycle Source Magazine, and I want to thank you for watching the flagship show of the Source Media Group, Shop Talk. We go live with Shop Talk every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but it's only one of the many programs we offer from Source Media. In addition to that, Wednesday nights we have Cannonball Chronicles that looks into the life and times of Cannonball racers as they prepare for this year's motorcycle Cannonball. Thursday night, we have Bike Night Live that dives into the culture of bike night, the food, the bikes, and the fun of hanging out with friends, and we even have some live entertainment. Sunday morning, Cyber Swap kicks off, where we have a sort of home shopping network approach to motorcycle swap meets, and we bring guys on that have parts to sell live right there. All of this in addition to our staple programs, which are Grease and Gears TV, live on the street from the events and rallies, Grease and Gears Garage, and Grease and Gears Garage Roadshow. We look forward to bringing more of this type of programming to you from the home of Two Wheel Entertainment, the Source Media Group.
My dad was a big influence. He's always been a two-wheeled maniac. When I was getting into riding, we weren't allowed to have training wheels. He would put us out on a hill on the grass in the yard. So they start here, so if you tip over, it doesn't hurt so bad. So he was racing flat track. There's other kids out there riding mini bikes, going in circles. So we're like, well, of course we want to try that. Dad's racing, why can't we race?
I had a family, but I can't walk away from it, so that's an easy fix. 5 bikes for the boys and bring everyone to the race.
Make sure they can do it too.
Yeah. So we'd spend the whole day at the races trying to keep all those bikes running and keep track of these guys and get up to the line and shift your two-stroke in the corner.
He's still mad about it. Other than just going to the track and racing, being out here and turning wrenches, that's my happy place. My favorite thing I've bought from Dennis Kirk is all the last minute parts. Because there's a lot of times we're going riding the next day and I broke something the night before. Call Dennis Kirk or check online and they have it. And I can go grab it in the morning, put it on, load up and go. Dan and I have cut so many laps out here. You can't wipe the smile off my face and my helmet when we're doing it because it's like, I know exactly how this is gonna go and it's gonna be the best time. That track over there, which looks super nice now, started out as one tire track, just being ridden over and over and over and over again.
When it was just that little goat path and we're riding through weeds and like around, and it was just like, to watch the progression's kind of crazy.
Yes, I plan on motorcycles being in her life.
It's too late already.
Right, yeah, she's got 3 of her own in the house already. Dan bought her a Strider before she even made it home from the hospital.
Yeah, oh, that's what happens.
So she's got that. It's already tricked out with Feely Racing stickers on it. I'm Cole. This is my squad, and we're a Dennis Kirk family.
Now would be a good time to ask people, hey, how we doing? We're back. We're back. So that was a great guess, Michael. I mean, Dean did a great job with us.
Dean's awesome. He is awesome. Great guy, a great spirit. I mean, he really is a great spirit on the Cannonball.
Really down to earth. Nice, that was fun.
And it's, as Dean said, it's a great example how these friendships get made. I've been over to his place in Sonoma there, and he's been to the house here in Boulder, Colorado. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and now you didn't know each other before the Cannonball, did you?
No, that's right. Just taking his picture and getting to know him. That's
great.
it.
That's cool. So a couple of housekeeping things here tonight. We have the logo roll up in the corner of the frame. You'll see it up here. No, over here. See, I can't do this right. We have a bunch of our sponsors here. And we have a new sponsor tonight, Chris Tribby from Bike Works in Milwaukee. He's signed on. He's done a lot of great work for the Cannonball, for the Chase. He's got a new shop out there and he does great work. So I would look him up and maybe we can get a link to him up there at some point. We have a whole bunch of other sponsors. So if you get a couple minutes, take a look up at the logo roll and support our sponsors who are supporting us. We have gyms from out in California, Gyms Performance Parts and whatnot. So please support our sponsors. They support us. And it helps us to bring you a better show. We're still evolving, and hopefully we're getting the flow of things going pretty good here now. With that, I'd like to bring in our next guest. A lot of you from the Cannonball know Ryan as a pretty wild character, I would have to say. So with that, Ryan Allen.
Hey, Cannonball Nation. Cannonball
There
Nation,
he
how you
is.
guys doing? Robbie, everybody, good to see you.
How you doing, Ryan? What's new?
We're doing great. I'm actually up here in Sturgis, motorcycle capital of the world, enjoying life.
I unplugged my microphone by accident. My headphones.
How are you spending your days there?
Well, we've been doing a fair amount of work here at Glencoe Campground, just taking care of some things, and I've been here helping Jason. And it was time for vacation, so brought the family up here, doing our thing.
I don't think you're doing some fancy architecture work there, are you?
Actually, yes, I have been doing architecture at night, so I still have to keep my clientele happy.
But not on the campground.
Actually,
You're not redesigning the campground, or are you?
Oh, I can neither confirm nor deny any of that stuff either.
I want to see what you're going to do with the gauntlet. That's what I want to know.
But yeah, no, it's great to be here, and I'm glad to be on the show, and good to see you guys again.
Cool.
So Ryan, for those folks who are tuning in who don't know you, what is your ride in the Cannonball? What have you been riding?
Well, I was kind of born with an Indian spoon in my mouth from my father, and a long time ago he said, "What do you want to do with these old bikes?" And I was like, "I would love to ride them across the country," and he just thought I was crazy. And hey, he's looking down on me now, saying, "Well, he got to do it." So I ride a 1916 Indian Power Plus, first year of the Flathead. I've also ridden a 29 Scout on the 14 Cannonball, so she just couldn't keep up with my abuse. So I went back in time, and it's kind of weird. I went back in time, and I rode an older machine with a bigger motor, and I have a lot of fun.
Ryan, I will never forget the time that you came out here in preparation for Atlantic City.
Oh my God. Wow.
So Dean has a team name. You don't have a team name, but you had a crew with you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I called it the White Glove Team. You guys had your electronic music. You were all set up.
Oh yeah.
And then your test ride, you went out and beat the shit out of your motorcycle.
Yeah, it's like when I ride the Ghost. Most people don't know it, but Clint and God rest his soul, Rich isn't with us. We lost Rich this year, and
Rich was a wonderful guy, man.
Yeah, Rich Rao, great guy.
And you were such riding buddies, boy. You were side by side so much.
Oh yeah, there's nothing much that we can't handle. We're not only the riders. We're the mechanics. We do have what we call like a handler who runs the truck, but we built our machines, we ride them, and we maintain them. And I'm really hard on them. I know it's like I feel like a time captain. I'll like listening to some crazy tech house music in my helmet and just rocking that Indian into third. It's fun.
Cool. It was something to see, especially when you come down the road with several of you together. That was awesome. That was
absolutely.
Some sight and some feeling too, some energy.
Yeah, Rowdy rides with us too, and I don't know if anybody knows Rowdy out there. Rowdy Schneck, we call him Rowdy T. Tough Nut, Rowdy Schick, and he's
from your state, I believe, too, right?
That's right. There's only 2 Cannonballers from New Mexico, and so I reside in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Rowdy's down in Carlsbad on the Tough Nut Ranch.
Wow, that's something.
Rowdy.
Chris Simmons. Chris Simmons has chimed in, and she said she spent a day riding with you, and from that she calls you Mad Max. And that's one thing. And the other thing, she said we need to ask you about the story about Pat and the snake. So I have no idea what that's about, but I'm guessing you do.
Oh, absolutely. On the 14 Cannonball, we were in the state of Missouri, and my magneto got rained out really bad. And I was sitting under this tree on the side, and there was no way. Her name was Morticia. She was an ex-Wall of Death bike, and the bike was rained out. I'm looking up in the tree, calculating all these angles, and I was getting rained on. I was like, wow, I wanted this. And it was heartbreaking, but I'm sitting there, and there's a sinkhole off to the side. The bus shows up, and Pat Simmons and a couple other people get out of the bus. And as soon as Pat's walking towards me, this copperhead comes out of the hole and literally just kind of gives me a look. And that copperhead had sat under that tree with me the whole time in the rain.
Wow.
And it was less than an arm's length away. And I told Pat, I said, hey, Pat, you might want to back up. Usually they kind of nest together. And so people are always calling me like, the snake charmer or snake Plissken or, something like that. But it was an eye opener. That was for sure.
Your lucky day, huh?
It could have been a really bad day.
Hey, Ryan, I hate to butt in on you guys, but I'm compelled to ask this question. Whose Wall of Death did Morticia ride in?
Okay. I have a photo where it came from. I have a photo of it with Rhett Rotten and a lady who was on it, and I didn't know her name. I think she's passed away.
Samantha.
Was that Samantha's bike? Get out of here. No kidding.
Yeah, and it had a Sportster hub in the back. I wound up going to Greenville, North Carolina to pick it up with a buddy of mine. We had a couple of 101s that we were trying to pick up, and that Wall of Death bike happened to be there, and we made a deal on it. And the poor girl was really beat up. She'd been shortened about 3 inches, and it just really run through the ringer. So it was kind of fun to take Morticia off the wall and put her on the ball. And I had a great time with that bike. As a 29 101 Scout, ran a bigger Chief carburetor. I was not nice to that piece of equipment either, I'll admit it, but I had a really good time on her too.
Where's that bike now?
It's in storage. She just can't do the Cannonball. I'd love to do it, but she just doesn't seem like she can maintain third up the hills. I mean, I really have a good time on the Ghost. I've kind of found the machine that I really fell in love with.
Wow. Morticia and the Ghost. It sounds.
Yeah. A lot of concepts went into it. I think there's also a funny story with Pat's wife on the beach in the Daytona on the beach. I had a mortician's, like an amputation saw to hold the license plate in the back. And poor Chris's bike fell onto my bike next to the sand. And she just kind of looks down and she says, "What is that?" And I said, "Be careful. That's a, amputation saw."
Hey, is this the motorcycle here?
No.
Oh, okay. That was Sam's Indian. I was just checking. She was a very dear friend of all of ours.
Yeah. You know what? When you get a chance, when I get back home to my files, I'll send you a picture of Rhett and her next to it. And the only really way I could identify it was the additional brackets that I had to cut off the frame and the Sportster wheel. And I said, "Hey, that's the bike." That was hers.
Being Rhett's wall, Chris, I'm not sure who that could have been.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't associate Samantha with Rhett's wall.
Just curious,
Yeah.
But I'll send you the photo. Yeah.
Something else that comes up. I know that I've photographed you, run into you many times on the Cannonballs, and man, you cruise. You're intense. So I can get what Chris was saying about you. But then Chris Tribby chimed in, and he wrote something interesting here. He put a comment up. When Ryan passed me every day, he always slowed down and rode next to me for a bit. He would look over and give me a thumbs up and speed away. This was an adrenaline fusion I looked forward to every day. And I don't think he was alone on that. I think I'll bet there was a lot of other Cannonballers that watched you pull up and join along and then speed off again.
Yeah, I want to say I really took the time, because to watch Chris take an atmospheric valve single cylinder machine across the United States takes a lot of effort. And I of course, Chris, your team's called Team Effort. There's a good reason for that name. And I admire someone who's willing to take an atmospheric valve machine, because the knowledge you have to have and the subjective and objective relationship you have to have with a machine like that to make it perform the way that he did, it was incredible. That's for sure.
Wow. But, this is sort of it makes me think of the characters on the Cannonball. You are a big character on the Cannonball. You have a big presence and a lot of character. And there are many, many characters. It's amazing who is attracted to the Cannonball, the kind of riders they are, the kind of people they are. And it is a very characterful event. And what do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I don't know if you're asking me. I didn't mean
Yes, I'm asking all of you. Sure.
Well, I'll tell you, when Clint and Rich and Rowdy and I get together, it kind of feels like the goon SWAT on the 2-lane blacktop. And, it's like we're all kind of in it together, and we just have a really wonderful time. And if something goes wrong, we're always yelling back at each other. I've jumped in front of lawnmowers in corn country because the gas was just terrible, and yelled, "Hey, you got any gasoline?" So I'm sure they're just looking at me like the road warrior. And it goes back to what Chris said. I will have like a master link, a set of chain that's got like 2 master links on it in case I blow the masters. That holds my wallet on. There's a crazy funky bent wrench that I reach down every now and then to make sure the cylinders aren't wiggling off. I've had that happen before. I have a set of Nippics that I carry with me that are for tightening the intakes and the exhaust, because low frequency vibration is like your enemy. It is your enemy. And so I'll have these tools dangling off of me. And one time Cole Deister said, Ryan is working on his bike as he's riding. So things will happen.
So that explains why you can't stay in one lane, Ryan, or what?
Waiting for this, Robbie. I was waiting for it. I was like, Robbie's going to give me that. I was like, Robbie's going to be like, Ryan, pick a lane. Come on, which one is it? And I was like, that one? No, it might be that one. You just watch out. I'm ahead of you, so you watch out. So, but there's a couple times I'll come up on people that are riding like the middle stripe, and I'm kind of like, hey, you might want to give it some space, bud. You got some mirrors, because I'm all over the place. And I got that.
Here's the warning. If you see Ryan in front or behind you, you pick a lane, because Ryan ain't going to pick one.
No, sometimes it might be the ditch. I've had to do that a couple times too. And not proud of it, but I've had some pretty interesting moments on the Cannonball where you have to survive. And there's been a couple of ditches, and I'm not proud of it, but I walked away and ran through the ditch, back into second, up out of the ditch. And Rich came up to me and he goes, "That close, Ryan, that close. They almost got you." And I said, "Well, hey, next maneuver, let's go. What's on the map?"
Listen, Jason just texted that you locked him in the bathroom and he can't get out of there, that you're taking over the show.
Yeah, Jason and I have been having a really good time here. Of course, the news was hard, but it was absolutely the right decision. And I think everybody in their right mind knows that was the right decision that Leanne and Jason made.
Absolutely.
Well, you're a good friend, and I know you and Jason are very close. It's a good thing you're there with him right now, because he has the support of everybody, but you being there means a lot, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I get to fix stuff too, right? We're like, we're always fixing things and making sure we have a smile on our face at the end of the day, and take some shots and remember that it's not about the individual, it's about the family, like that Dean had talked about. And everybody kind of knows that for real, it's a huge endeavor and I call it like a circus, right? And I know that's a Latin word. But the reality is that I think some people would really frown upon us, doing this and not taking consideration with what's going on with everybody else. And you guys know I'd love to ride every day and want to go, but I think that it's not about me. It's not about the individual. It's about the family and protecting the herd.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys are going to love this. In from social media, they said that Ryan's actually doing such a good job that maybe Jason just let him go on the show like this. Because he's killing it, and that's coming from the Cannonball family too. That's right from the Motorcycle Cannonball YouTube page. So,
and
just
also,
so you know,
also from that page chiming in, you have some questions. Like Rebecca Cunningham is asking, "Have you told the Clint story yet about his bolts shearing off? What's that all about?"
All right, so I don't know if AMCA did an article on it, but they should. If they didn't, here it is. Why lightning holes are important. Anybody know what lightning holes are for your rear sprocket?
Tell us about it.
Okay, lightning holes. It's you have holes that are evenly spaced concentrically around the sprocket, and so this allows for a Ryan and Clint fix. And I sheared the bolts right off the sprocket somewhere in Illinois, and good old Simsy came along, and I was going to just put a ratchet strap. Well, if you don't have those lightning holes, you can't interweave around the sprocket through the spokes. So very important to have lightning holes out there, Cannonball family. There you go. So what you can do is if you shear off the bolts, you get you some paracord, because the shear strength on typical paracord is about 250 foot-pounds. It's good to have Clint around you because he's a fisherman. He knows how to tie knots. So what we did is I was basically holding while Clint's lashing over. We did what's called I believe it's called a gannion knot. And then there's a zip tie that's put in, and we start the lacing over. Each one of the lightning holes was laced over, I think, 8 times. So you do that 8 times around the sprocket. You got thousands of pounds of shear strength on the sprocket. I made it all the way, made perfect points. We rode that same sprocket. It's still on the bike today, and it's kind of like a Honda Cush drive.
Wow, that's something. Cool. Dave Przgocki asked a question. He said, what about the shock cord tying the sprocket? I guess that's the same story then, right?
That's right.
That's it, yeah.
So it kind of acts like a cush. And, Clint and Rich can't, but Rowdy, they'll tell you I'm really hard on that. I love to slam shift that bike and get her going. And she takes a lot of abuse on that rear hub. So it's kind of nice to have that cush set up.
Very nice. Very nice.
What can you tell us as what Chris Simmons, I don't know about fondly, but she refers to as those gross pants that you wear every day. What can you tell us about that?
Pants.
Now, believe it or not, this is kind of funny. Those it's kind of crazy. So they're a little bit of me and a little bit of Ralph Lauren. So Ralph Lauren those are actually his pants, and he only makes like a certain amount of pants. I think there was only like a 100 or so made of those pants. And I think, I'm actually wearing them there with my good friend, Bill Redensel. And what they are is they're in the classic section. So they're made out of a military canvas, and then they're shrouded in leather. And then there's extra leather that's like pinged onto them. But anybody that knows that rides the Cannonball, your hands, your body, everything's going to get pickled with oil. And I wish I could put a plug in there for Aeroshell. It's the only oil to run, but I've got Aeroshell all over me. Right. It's called Aeroshell 100 ashless dispersant, but it's a 50 weight, and it's an aircraft oil, but I literally have it all over me. So those canvas pants just take a beating, and then they've been added to over the years. So they're probably going to be retired, but my family still thinks that they're, iconic, and they do suit a purpose.
I hope they make it one more Cannonball. It's going to be tough to photograph you not wearing them.
How many Cannonballs have they been in?
That makes 4. It's going to be 4 this time. That makes 3. Yeah. So that's
And how
3.
many times you wash them during the Cannonball?
Yeah, right. Okay. Tell me this. All I want to know is, are they hanging in the closet, or are they standing up in the closet?
There's actually a bag that I call Cannonball paraphernalia. and it gets washed and it gets put away until the next cannonball, until about a month before the cannonball. And then I pull it out, and I feel sorry for the seamstress and some people, because I do some of it. Like I'll like design them and I'll have a drawing and it'll be like, go to the seamstress and I'll be like, I want this laced over this way and I'll provide the lacing cord. And these poor ladies just look at me like I'm a nut, and I feel for them. I do, but there's a purpose to the way they're built and the job that they do on the Cannonball for me.
They do a
for
great
sure.
job. They do a great job.
How'd
And they
you
sure make the
find out-
photos.
How'd you find out about the Cannonball, Ryan? Tell us about that.
The Cannonball what happened was I was getting back into building antique motorcycles, and these videos started popping up about the Cannonball. And oddly enough, it was people that I had acquaintances with in the Texas community. I grew up in Sherman, Texas. It's north of Dallas. And Lottie was from Houston. And it was almost like, this is exactly what I want to get back into, because I do a lot of design build things. And the motorcycle is a wonderful vehicle to test my crazy ideas and designs for getting across this wonderful continent on 2-lane blacktops. Most of the time I'm designing very static objects, but to go back in time and to work on these wonderful, fantastic machines that were way ahead of their time is unbelievable. The knowledge that you have, the social skills you need to be, and the networking that has to come into it. And I had done it with my father before I went to college, and I went to architecture school, wound up selling all the motorcycles off to pay for a good fair jag of that architecture school. Came back to it, started watching the Cannonball, people performing in it. And I said, this is really a place where I think I can excel and take my ideas and put them to use.
No.
Do you have a favorite Cannonball memory?
I think Bill Redensel will tell you that they're almost kind of like trauma dreams. They'll come back to you in the middle of the night years later, and you'll be like, wow, I'm not on the Cannonball. Thank God. Just stuff like that. But favorite Cannonball memory, I like crossing the Mississippi. It's kind of a weird thing, right? It's I kind of go back, and I'm really nostalgic. So every time we cross the Mississippi, it's just I can't explain why I like that. Sheridan, I do architecture, and Sheridan was the architect who did the archway of St. Louis. So I kind of feel like, I'm going back in time, and urbanity kind of was on the Mississippi River right there. And that's kind of like the great frontier. So if I made it to the Mississippi River the way the Cannonballs run, then I feel like that I've made the next passage. And it's a wonderful feeling. I don't know why that water does it to me, but something about the Mississippi River, when I cross it, I kind of get elated, and I'm like, okay, we made it to the Mississippi. This is a good deal.
Very cool. One more question, if you don't mind me going back to your riding partners. If you told me that you, Rich, Clint, and your Rowdy, that you grew up together, I would believe it. But I'm guessing you didn't. So what's the story behind there?
We're all like-minded guys, and we communicated and do communicate extremely well. And there's not one leader among us. We listen to the herd, and we work our ideas out, and we help each other get across the country. And we have such diverse backgrounds, but the concept of migrating a 100-year-old machine or old machine across the United States rings extremely clear to all of us. And the message to us is, we will, make the miles, and we don't really stress out. Like I've heard sometimes it's kind of funny. We bounce off each other. Clint, sometimes we'll watch somebody melt down, and Clint will be like, Ryan, let the games begin.
Did you know each other before the first Cannonball you did?
No, it was kind of cool. Clint was parked right next to me on the 14, and I think their battery, they had left the truck on because they were working, and they're like, "Hey, you have a booster pack?" And it's like, "Yeah, for sure." And I'm sure, and Clint's always given me a hard time because when he first saw me, clean cut looking Indians, clean cut looking guy. He's probably thinking, "Oh, this guy had, who is this guy?" But Clint and I wound up hitting it off, and especially on the 16 and hanging out at Robbie's place. Robbie, was gracious enough to let us all be there at Retrocycle, and the guys there at Retrocycle are way cool. I miss Ryan. I love talking with that guy. Ryan at Robbie's could hang out in our crew any day and just be like, right on. I know exactly what you're saying. I think one time we were working on the Ghost, like in Robbie's, and doing a shakedown because I was so up against the wire on that machine. Ryan was trying to watch us, and he was just like, it was like this crazy of arms. We took the whole top end, redid the top end in like an hour or something. He goes, "I come back over, you're done." So, same thing with Clint or Rich, or Rowdy. Something will break. We'll all jump in. We'll all have a certain skill set, but we'll all get into it, work it out, finish it up, and do it. Okay, really good memory. Clint waking up, because Clint's my roommate. Can you imagine that? Clint and Ryan in the same room at night? Oh, wow. That's yeah. I feel sorry. We do leave money on the pillow because we feel bad about that bathtub and, the ring on the oil ring that's left behind and stuff like that. But, Clint, one time he woke up at like 5 a.m. and he says, "I think I forgot to put the wrist pin clips on my piston." And I was like, let's go get some breakfast. You'll be all right. Sure enough, I think it was like 10 minutes. Pull the cylinder. The beauty of that Indian is you can pull the cylinder right off the motor in the frame. You don't have to pull the motor out of the frame, and open it up. Sure enough, he had forgot to put the pins in, put them in, made it to the line. I mean, stuff like that. Those are those trauma dreams I was talking about that will get you. I mean, if you're in that mode to run it.
Wow.
So that's a favorite and worst moment.
We made it. We're still smiling. And I think there's an old slogan. It was always funny. Rich would say it. He said, Indian, it says, win or lose, always smile or always laughing. Like the laughing Indian, it's like win or lose, always laughing. So that's kind of us.
Wow. Is it time to let Jason out of the bathroom?
Jason, you want out of the bathroom? You want to jump in here? Jason wants me to keep going. Well, I don't know what else you guys got.
Rob?
Michael? What do you got for Ryan? I could talk to Ryan for hours. Like when he and his crew came here to prep for Atlantic City. So it was like a circus here. We had probably, Ryan, we have 10 or 13 teams here.
Yeah, it was really cool because Feinsod, I love Doug. Doug's a cool guy.
Oh,
it's like, Ryan, you got a bit of copper pipe for this guy? It's like, yeah, I think, same thing when they were running the Rex. Mike Carson says, "Hey, Ryan, I know you're at the store picking up stuff. Can we have some of your copper pipe?" And everybody's.
Oh, and then Carson had the 3-wheeler and he had to go get lumber to fix it. Like he's cutting lumber to fix this 3-wheeler.
Oh, I'm just wondering why
Chopper
didn't the photographer? How come the photographer didn't get invited to this party?
I posted on Facebook. It was an open house. Anybody who needed to do last minute work the week before the Cannonball could come up here. I cleared my shop. I cleared the lifts. Wow. Feinsod came in and took over. And no, it was great. I mean, it was fun for me because all I did was walk around and kind of keep my mouth shut unless somebody asked for something. And, the parking lot was like a carnival. We had Chopper Dave here. And
I tell you, my favorite story, I got to tell you at Rob's, it was like, and it was Doug. Doug's kind of like, Ryan, this is the time to do it. I did something really dumb and it didn't work out. And that's why we did the top end. But my favorite story was watching Doug really work on this Thor clutch. And he just kept yard sailing this clutch and it was hot. And it was funny. The bearings, he'd go take a ride, he'd come back, and the bearings were like raisins. I mean, they just looked like, just the abuse that Thor clutch has to go through. And, trying to figure out how that works. And and it was a tough deal for them. You're just watching them kind of try to put this thing together. And I mean, it's antiquated machinery. And a lot of times, if it's just you doing it, you don't have a team. It's tough. And you can feel like, but you always move on. You're always doing it. I mean, there are so many great teams out there doing all their work. And I mean, they know who they are. And to see the performance to make this old technology perform just as well, if not, and obviously better than it did back then, because the 2-lane blacktop has become our enemy, because it'll be an unbridled path for some of those beasts and those machines out there. And so you got to pace yourself and you got to ride them to make sure that you can maintain that ride. But everybody knows the 4s are just beasts, and those, and Mark Hill is a good friend of mine. Those are amazing machines that'll run it. But the time, it's not just riding a motorcycle. It is the effort and the time it takes to build one of those machines to make them viable for the Cannonball, and preparation. Redensol, everybody knows it's you got to have that preparation for it and that time into it to do it.
In upcoming episodes, I hope to get some of the support people in. I have a quick story. While you guys are out on the road, so I was with Chris and Pat Simmons on their team, and Plumber Dave was with me. So we were like cruising across the country we were mostly on the interstates as a support team. So one day we're in South Dakota, and we left Pear, South Dakota, got out on the interstate, and the alternator dropped out on us. And we had to find a place to get the truck fixed, get back on the road, and be there for when you guys come in at night. And I'm sure there are stories like that. I don't know. Do you guys have a story from your support crew where something like that happened?
Man, Joe Cannon, our support guy, we call him the
Joe's
Candy
a great
Man.
guy.
Yeah, we call him the Candy Man. My son calls him the Candy Man because he's always got candy. He's like, "Want some candy, Ryan?" Joe has everything ready for us, and it's like flawless. And I'm not sure if Joe's going to make it with us on this run. Now that we've pushed the ball back, it's a huge potential. We have another guy, Eric, who's affectionately called Cupcake, who is going to go with us on this run, who's just as dedicated to doing the run with us because he's down with it too. But the priority one, and is like, we've got to be on the line riding, and our support staff is really minimal. It's like usually it's just one guy. I mean, ours is one guy dealing with, us. Can you imagine trying to handle Clint? I mean, that's not easy. I mean,
Clint's a great guy, though.
Can you imagine trying to handle Rowdy? I mean, yeah.
No. What did he have for tools? Did he have a van or a truck, or what was he hauling everything with?
It's pretty wicked. Trailer? It's pretty wicked. It's Clint's fishing truck that he's rigged out for crabbing, for all kinds of fishing. And if people don't know Clint, he's a really great guy. He has built out this truck, this just honking 4-door Ford that's got the bed that's been ripped off. It's just a flat bed that we keep the stuff in, and we have a trailer. But we literally have, I'd hate to say a mobile machine shop, but it pretty much is. A lot of times we have it all prepared. A lot of times we don't need all that stuff, but it goes along with us, and it's a 4-door rig. And man, when you're in that rig, we even if we're not riding, and if it happened to be in that truck, we're still having a good time. We're still smiling, and we're still rooting people on if our routes happen to cross with the Cannonballers. And we've been, knock on wood, we haven't had any problems with the support truck yet. So
that of course was the last Cannonball when you had this team put together. But what about your first Cannonball? What did you do for support for that?
The first Cannonball was my brother-in-law, Rolf Bieber, and my brother-in-law was wicked. He was managing me and Kirk, and we were riding 2 Scouts, and he was on it every day because I have like certain things that I require. And he was like, coming in, what do you need, Ryan? What do you need? And doing the maintenance, maintaining these 2 bikes. That was the first one. And it was kind of like on the 16, I was going to go with Jason, and I wound up running with Doug Walke, and everybody knows Doug, right?
He's watching tonight too.
Doug and I had a great time on the 16. and that was fun. I kind of tell everybody affectionately that Doug is, my older brother that's just mean to me sometimes. I love you, Doug. We poke fun at each other, but we like each other's company, and Doug and I have a great time. So we wound up running together on the 16, and then I became really good friends with Rich and Clint, and always been friends with Rowdy. And it was one of those things that just kind of, like you said, Michael, that synergy of us all kind of having the same mindset. It kind of came together, and we were just like, it was a no-brainer. Hey, let's have a good time. Let's run our bikes. And we were all running Power Pluses. And I'll tell a big secret out there. We've kind of got Rowdy to come over to the dark side. Rowdy's got, this might be the time. He's got like a 17 Power Plus that's at my house right now. And he was like, oh my God, you guys have so much fun on those. And Rowdy rides his J, which is an amazing machine, Rose. But so we don't have like this Harley versus Indian battle. We have this common love for the machine, and I have that a lot. I get a lot of that from Scott Bird, and he's like always needling me, and that's a good thing. But I think it's a great thing. But I know what it takes to make any of these old machines run, and it's a tough one.
Could you imagine what the listeners that have never been on the Cannonball, what they must think after the first few weeks of this and the characters we've seen? It must be pretty wild to imagine what 80 or 100 characters of this intensity are like together, huh?
Oh, it's a circus. It's absolutely a circus. So I think it's great because everybody has got a lot of wealth of knowledge this generation, and I'm relatively young. I mean, Clint and we're in our 40s, and I don't know what the average age of the Cannonball rider is. I'm not an ageist, but it's an idea. We all have a very similar mindset to do that. And so while they're and like you said, every person has a story, and everybody is committed to getting their machine across the United States. And it's a tough endeavor, and it's not an easy one. And especially with what's going on now, imagine what Jason had to deal with, thinking about all this stuff going on, and throw this unprecedented event into it, try to maintain the riders so they're not all mad at Jason, because we can at least get a 2-hour nap at night for some of us sometimes. So it's a hard thing to do, but it's important to know that everybody has the same idea. No matter how much of a character they are, they want their bike on the line in the morning, and they want to be able to make the miles at the end of the day. And everybody wants to see that whole group migrate, like this crazy antique circus move and migrate across the United States. And it's a very social event, extremely.
Yeah. And I refer to the different teams as different circuses. So like you've got GLT and Carson Classic Motors. That's the Carson circus. There's
GLT, Carson, good friend. Buck, great guy. I think Buck said a statement the other day on social media. He said somebody posted a picture of Daytona, and they're like, "What's going on here?" It was on the beach. Somebody had said, "Oh, it looks like a huge fight club." And then I think Buck's comment was probably more poignant. It was, "That looks like 16 days of brain damage about to happen." So,
cool. Well, I think you've told the story really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. But we've also probably gone a bit over. What do you think, Rob? How are we doing there?
I think I would like to thank Ryan for coming on with us tonight, and I'm sure we'll have him back on. There's a lot more to talk about, and thanks for locking Jason in the bathroom for a little while. Maybe give him a little time to reflect on,
He needed it. He really needed it. I've warned him all day long. It's been a week almost I've been here, and you guys know, this wasn't an easy one for him and Leanne to do. It never is.
Right. He was committed. He was committed to this, and he waited as long as he could. But he did the responsible thing. And listen, it gives us a lot to look forward to, and it gives us on this show at least gives us more of an opportunity to meet more of the Cannonball people, share more of the stories, and build up even more enthusiasm.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Ryan. Appreciate you being here. And I appreciate you letting me take all those pictures of you too, across the country.
So thanks everybody for watching Motorcycle Cannonball Chronicles. Let's not forget our sponsors, support them. I think there's still some stuff available on the Motorcycle Cannonball page. Now would be a good time to help support Jason and buy some of the products that he has. Maybe some of these will even become collectibles. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. And hopefully we're going to have guests as good as we had tonight. Right, Michael? Oh, Jason's back. Jason,
Out of the
you got
bathroom.
anything you... Wow, you feel all right?
Came in to say goodbye, right?
I did. I had to come and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for all the support. Me and Leanne love you guys. All the kind comments, all that kind of stuff. Thank you guys for hosting with me tonight. Great show. I think we're finally starting to find some wheels here and having some fun and getting in a little groove and figuring out all this little technology stuff.
Right, and let's get some more people who want to sponsor. Maybe some of you Cannonball teams want to throw your name up on the logo roll. That's not all that expensive, and it'd be fun to see some of you guys' names and lights on our show.
Show the
Absolutely.
love. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Cycle Media.
Till next time. Thanks, Cycle Source. See you guys.
They're really bad at it. I love them.